Hello, this is Father Rich coming to you from our olive wood carving of the Last Supper in the back of the church at Our Lady of Peace. I wanted to review some of the things we learn about and can learn about the Last Supper here that we talked about actually at the Holy Thursday last year at the Mass, but the video wasn't able to see the actual outline, so it may have been hard to follow some of the things that I was describing. Remember, this was, as it says in the front in this plaque, I'll read it for you, to Our Lady of Peace Parish in honor of our spiritual leader, Father Rich Toohey, from the Pilgrims to the Holy Land of Israel, October 30th, 2019. So this is from a year and a half ago. We took a pilgrimage. Most of the pilgrims, of the 43 pilgrims that went, were from Our Lady of Peace. And that group, we made this donation of this for the parish for our reflection and appreciation of the Last Supper. So we thank those pilgrims for that. I also want to thank Frank and Kathy Eberly, who not only helped build, but donated the money for this display case, which really came out remarkable. So it's a beautiful, now permanent part of the back of our shrine area in the church. And so to talk a little bit more about the setup here, traditionally, the belief that this would have most likely been how it would have looked, and this isn't the picture that we are used to with Leonardo da Vinci's famous painting and others that have made this famous, but that this would have been the most likely way in first century Roman and Jewish culture that they would have gathered for a significant meal like the Passover. This would have been one of the major meals of the whole year, and so very likely, and they call this setup a triclinium. And it's for the three parts. It's a U-shaped setup. Tables are low, maybe 6 to 10 inches off the ground, and there are places, even possibly cushions, although we don't see that here, where the people dining actually recline at the table. And remember, not only the Last Supper, but at other meals that Jesus shared in the Gospels, they talk about Jesus reclining at table. So again, that scripturally reinforces that this is likely the way that it would have been set up. They would have leaned on their left elbow like I am right now, and then had their right hand free to grab things or to eat with. Their feet would have been laying out towards the outside so that the servants could have access to wash them possibly during the meal or whatever the servants needed to do, but then also the servants could have access to the whole table here in the middle. So to talk through the spots, I think it's understood Jesus doesn't take the traditional spot, and again in some of those paintings in the middle of the table, but over here, second from the right, that this is most often where the head of the host of the meal would have sat. You can see he's raising his right hand up in a blessing, so reinforcing that this is the Jesus figure. And then to the right here, I get my shadow on it, but the belief actually to the right and left, these would have been significant spots for the highest honor among the guests. And then over here, this would have been the guest of honor to his left. And it's believed that would have been John, the beloved disciple, to his right, and Judas to his left. Now you say, why did they get those spots? I think most people agree that Jesus was reinforcing the lesson that he'd been trying to teach the apostles for 3 years. When they were constantly arguing over who was the greatest and least among them. And we remember they were arguing about this not too long before the Last Supper. And Jesus says the last shall be first and the first shall be last. So the idea of putting the beloved disciple, the youngest of the apostles, at the right to show them that with Jesus things are turned upside down, right? And then Judas to the left, the guest of honor, one suggestion is that he was the only of the apostle that wasn't from Galilee. So he had a unique identity, and being from the closer to the area of Jerusalem, we know that was south of Galilee, that likely could have been why Judas was given that spot. And then the other person that we identify here is this far right. And the suggestion here is that that's where Peter was. And you would not expect him to be there. Again, that would have been in the hierarchy of seating, the lowest spot, the lowest honor. But again, part of that lesson that Jesus is teaching, this was actually very often the servant's spot. So they could go and get the food and move and not disrupt the rest of the guests. But once again, reinforcing, hey, you're the first pope, you're going to be the leader and the shepherd of this church that Jesus is establishing. You're going to be the rock. You have to put yourself last. You have to be humble. And that's what he was constantly reinforcing. And this also suggests the indication then of the moment of the, Jesus talking about the betrayal. We just heard that gospel today at Mass on Wednesday of Holy Week. You can almost imagine Peter looking across the table to John, kind of indicating with his hand to say, hey, John, ask Jesus who's going to be the betrayer. And so John is leaning over, his hand out towards Jesus, and imagine him asking the question, and maybe Jesus getting ready to dip the morsel, or what was it called? There's a name for when you would sop, the sop that you would give, the bread that you would dip in, getting ready to do that to identify the betrayer. Now remember, even that gesture was a gesture that was one that you did to honor somebody when you gave them, especially the first sop or the first broken piece of bread dipped in the dips. That was an affectionate expression of honor. So you get the sense that Jesus is trying to still help Judas not make this decision, not betray him. He's still honoring him. He's not kicking him out. He's still showing this call to love even one who might betray you. And he reinforces that by the fact that, remember, Peter doesn't end up washing the feet as the servant spot, but Jesus washes the feet. We know that's a very memorable part of the Last Supper every Holy Thursday, that Last Supper Mass, is that we wash the feet of the people, the priests. And Jesus reinforcing, because that was the role of the servant, and reinforcing, hey, if you're going to be the leader of the church and you're going to be my first bishops and priests, you have to serve. That's that model of servant leadership. And he would even wash Judas's feet as a way, again, trying to give him one last chance to not make this choice that he made. So this is suggested that this could be a money bag here by the feet of Judas, the 30 pieces of silver that he took. But this gives you kind of a setting of what it could have very well looked like, a little bit of the lessons that we learned from even the sitting and the placement of where people would have sat. I hope this can help you to enter more fully into Holy Thursday this year, 2021, and grow in your appreciation for the first Mass, that Last Supper, which is at the heart of everything we do and everything we are as Catholics. Thank you for joining me. Have a great Triduum, and God bless.